Welcome back to the Locked On Huskies live podcast, where we're going to be talking about the college football playoff rankings. Here we go.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, as I said in the opener, welcome back to the Locked On Huskies podcast. We're doing this live. I'm Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. We're reacting to the college football playoff rankings. Thank you for making this whatever watch or listen to the day it is for you, as we hope you're joining us live on YouTube right now. But if you're listening back to it after the fact, hey, thanks for tuning in. We always appreciate you. Lars, Washington's number 5. Do you want to just go from there?
Yeah, well, we were both wrong in terms of who the number 1 team in the country was, apparently.
Tune into the Wednesday show and find out what we had to say about that.
Yeah, a little curious about that. But, I mean, yeah, I think Washington landed at number 5, which is where they are in the AP poll and basically where they deserve to be. They're no lower than 5 because Oregon is 6. You can't be lower than Oregon. The only team that is in the top 10 that is higher ranked than the team they also beat in the top 10 is Texas. And I think, to be fair, Texas does look a little bit better than Oklahoma compared to how Washington and Oregon match up against each other, I think.
And the Texas win against Alabama is a little bit like, since they lost to Oklahoma, they beat Alabama. Oklahoma lost Kansas. So it's going to be a little bit different there. Yeah.
And so that's why that balances out. Washington is still undefeated, as Kaylee DeBoer said on ESPN. Hey, look, we've beaten everybody we could play. Has it looked pretty? No. And that's where, the college football playoff chairman, Boo Coughlin, I believe is his name. Was correct pronunciation on the back end of that one. Said that the committee, and we kind of touched on this, and people will find out on the Wednesday show when they listen to it, that Washington's games against Stanford and Arizona State, particularly, really, I think it's Arizona State. I think that's the one where the Stanford, they still put up 30 plus points. It wasn't great, but it was a lot better than 0 offensive touchdowns. So I think the Arizona State game was kind of the indictment game that we all knew it was going to be. But at the end of the day, they still won that game. How they lost that game, I'm not sure Washington has a shot to make the playoffs, even with that win against Oregon, because of how poorly that looked. It was that egregiously bad. And so I've said in the beginning, style points matter.
So I agree with you. And this comment from Doug Robinson here is really great. It says, I think it's a bit disrespectful by their own measure. The CFP says Washington has the best win, Oregon, and plays in the best conference with most teams in the top 25, but still put Florida State 4th. Doug, I agree with you. That is a really good point. And because there is a little bit of room for debate there, right? Where you could say that Washington does have a right to be at 4. They deserve to be there from the conference they play in, but the wins in the last 2 weeks haven't necessarily been super convincing. So I don't hate that. What I did kind of take issue with a little bit over the course of the show was it just seemed like an Oregon love fest for the most part of, Oregon is playing like the best team in the country right now. Oregon this, Oregon that, but we can't put them over Washington because Washington beat them. And it kind of felt like what we've heard, just kind of, you see it on Twitter over the last couple of weeks, is that Washington, they beat Oregon, but Oregon looks like the better team in every regard, but it doesn't matter. And I'm glad that the committee took the route of, we need to put Washington here. And I think that because 2 of the top 4 teams need to play each other, including number 1, Ohio State, which we'll save our thoughts on that for another time, since we're only doing 12, 15 minutes here on this one. But Fraser TK says 3 top 20 opponents in the next 3 weeks for the Huskies, which, that's going to be something we're going to probably dive into a little bit more over the course of the show. But I think that 5 is fair. And it's something we talked about a little bit when we did way too early predictions, just when we recorded the show a little bit earlier in the day. That will be coming out tomorrow. So again, be sure to tune into that. But I think that this isn't necessarily bad for Washington, right? Because not only do Ohio State and Michigan, who are both in the top 4, have to play each other, it seems like, as the show kept saying, style points do matter because Georgia is not number 1. And Georgia, who's been number 1 all year, if it's just, they're winning, they're undefeated, Georgia would still be number 1. So I think that's something to consider here. And before we move on here, because this is again a quicker show, we're going to give a shout out to our friends over at Gametime, because there are only 2 home games left this year. And if you want to buy tickets, you shouldn't be stressed out while you're doing that. And Gametime is the best way to do that, because with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. Some of the best things about them: last minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all kinds of deals on the Gametime app. And you can get a view from every single seat in the venue, so you know what the view is going to look like from your seat before you buy. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you that complete peace of mind with your purchase. All in prices, show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So one thing that that I wanted to get into that I saw here in the comments is we got a really good question here from Duquesne, which is, would UW be in the top 4 with a win this weekend against USC? I would say yes. I think that going on the road at USC is going to be tough, and I don't think that, it's going to be one of those where, you got to win convincingly. I think this is one of those games where it doesn't matter if it's by 1 point, by 20 points, by 30 points, that would be enough, because Florida State's resume, and Lars, something again we talked about on the Wednesday show. I know we keep teasing that, and everyone will just have to tune in. I think that that's something where just having that extra ranked win on your resume would do a lot for this team.
It would, although the problem is, the ironic part is USC is the lowest ranked of the top 3 teams. Oregon State's the highest. And yet, to your point earlier in the season, if they lose to Oregon State, and that's their 1 loss, and it's a close loss, right? But here's the thing. If Washington loses, it still has to be a close loss, because as I said last week and reiterated again this week, those 2 games against Arizona State and Stanford, and even because Arizona is now looking better, so we can kind of brush that one aside as maybe a push, if anything. But it's the game against Arizona State where it's like, okay, the second you lose, that's now going to come back to bite you even more. So instead of dropping from 5 to 7 or 8, you might drop down to 10. Right. Which at that point is kind of harder to crawl back up. You need a lot more to fall your way. You could certainly get a New Year's 6, right? Everything is still, for the most part, in front of you from a overall perspective, except not the national championship, right? So, and it also might take a couple of other teams losing and things like that. But for the point, Washington. So again, it starts this weekend, right? If they beat, I think they have to. I think here's the problem, because USC is the lowest ranked of the top 3 teams that are in the top 25 that they're going to play, and especially with the caliber of defense that they're going to face and the product that they put on the field with that coaching staff on defense, you gotta win by at least 10 points. Like it's just because unless Caleb Williams has a miraculous, dominating game, and
which is possible,
which is possible, right? So if that's the way they have a close win, okay, then you stay at 5. I don't know if you move up. And the catch is going to be Florida State's at Pitt, and that might be a trap game for Florida State. The Arizona State game that Washington had, where even though it's at home, that one's on the road. That might be one where if Florida State drops that one, then Washington can kind of coast a little easier.
So I see what you're saying, but I think a ranked road win, assuming they are able to pull off this game against USC, just kind of speaks for itself, right? And the fact that USC, while it might honestly be a little high, putting USC at 20 really, really helps. Mm-hmm. So just the fact that, because Locust 94 here says, I think the comments emphasize the committee emphasizes record more than rankings, which, yeah, that's true. But USC, we can kind of look at their 2 losses to both being the ranked teams, right? To Notre Dame and to USC, and to Utah. But I think that when you just kind of take into account the fact that they were still willing to put them inside the top 20 should mean something here.
I agree. And actually, the more that I think about it, because next week, Oregon plays USC at Autzen. So if Lincoln Riley is able to lose this Saturday at home and then do the Lord's work next Saturday, then, and to reiterate, this is the first ranking. This is the first set of college football playoff rankings that honestly, in 3 or 4 weeks time, especially with the gauntlet that all these Pac-12 teams and Big Ten teams are going to be facing in November, it's going to look a lot different. And we even said it again to tease the Wednesday show again. Georgia could lose. I I would not be surprised. Missouri plus 21 right now. Take it, because whether they win that game or not, without Brock Bowers, it's going to be a little bit closer, right? Same thing with Stanford plus 27. Like, there's no way Washington wins the game, sure, but not by that much. Which, again, you would think early in the season, yeah, they would blow out Stanford. But again, it's always just, this is college football, and also this is good college football. These are, yes, you could say that Arizona State and Stanford have a combined 4 wins. Great. Look at those games, though, and also look at what they don't have. And so it's like Arizona State is much better than a 1 or 2 win team. Stanford is at least probably, they're like a 500 team. They play like a 500 team and things like that. So it's not like you're losing a close game to Cal, right? Where you're USC and you're barely squeaking one past in Berkeley. It's like you blew out Cal, you blew out Michigan State, you blew out all these teams, and then teams started to get your numbers. So it's a way of which Washington has done what they needed to do. They still can do what they need to do. They might need a few more pieces to fall their way. And again, Oregon can lose to USC next week. So, and we're not even having this discussion anymore.
On that note, and we'll talk about this more on the other side of the break, Sam Taylor Delaney asked, is there a realistic possibility that Oregon loses another game this season? Yes, and we will talk about that more. But first, we've got to get another shout out to our good friends over at FanDuel. Lars and I were talking about the line, excuse me, not the line. I keep saying that. The over-under on this game against USC, which is currently at 75.5, which is just absolutely wild. And I honestly, I wouldn't mind taking the over on that. I think that could definitely hit with Alex Grinch standing on the other sideline there. But you can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's right, $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. So, Lars, as we wrap up here in this couple minutes, just this quick hitter bonus segment, we appreciate everybody in the comments helping us out, asking questions, just having a great conversation down in there. So, Sam Taylor Delaney asked if it's realistic that Oregon loses again this year. Absolutely. Because they play USC. They also have to play Oregon State, who beat them last year with 19 straight runs. So it's very possible, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is Oregon State is also better this year than they were last year. USC, are they better? They're not worse. They're certainly not worse. Oregon, shout out to our friends at FanDuel here again. I believe that game is a currently 13.5 point spread in favor of Oregon when I saw the early line, which is similar. Washington was favored by about 4 a couple of weeks ago against USC. Now they're down to 3.5. So again, Oregon's going to be the betting favorite going into that win. And if USC loses to Washington, they got nothing to, they can just go all out against Oregon and say, hey, you know what? We're going to ruin your shot. Well, our shot's already ruined. We're now going to take you. And then that's where all the chaos happens, because now you have an unbeaten Washington team just kind of almost not, it's not coasting, right? Because you can still lose to Oregon State and Utah or Washington State.
Sure.
But the chances of that diminish, especially if you beat USC this weekend, just because it's hard to see this team having another letdown game. They'll be close against Oregon State. I'm just gonna tell fans right now. It's gonna be a close game at Reser Stadium. But aside from that, they should beat Utah by at least 10 points. USC, honestly, I think they'll probably beat it by a touchdown, maybe 2. And Washington State, I'm just gonna let that one sit where it is. But with that being said, everything is still in play for Washington. It's not the end of the world that they're outside looking in, because again, they're undefeated. If they were Oregon actually has the kind of sweat a little bit more, but they're not looking like it because of how well they've looked the past couple of weeks, which is the opposite case for Washington, where, hey, Washington's unbeaten, but man, they, again, coulda, woulda, shoulda had 3 losses.
But right, exactly. But they don't. And just to kind of wrap it up here, I feel like one of the best ways we can possibly wrap this up is Washington. We've seen what their peak looks like, right? And this just kind of feels like a valley, and it feels like the bottom of that valley, where it's the only way that they can go from here is up. Will they lose a game? Yeah, that's possible. But with the way the offense has shown it can operate when it's at just its top tier level, that's way higher than whatever it is that especially what we saw against Arizona State. Michael Penix talked today about how he's feeling a lot better, that he's not really dealing with the flu so much anymore. And I feel like that's going to be a very big part of this. So Lars, as we wrap it up here, thank you so much for jumping on, doing this quick bonus episode. Thank you to all the everydayers in the comments. It means a lot to us that you're able to jump out like this. Hey, appreciate it. Thank you. And, if you're not an everydayer yet and you just kind of jumped on and said, oh, what are these Husky fans talking about? Or Husky journalists, which is what we are, even though a lot of people.
I was gonna say, you call me a Husky fan, I'm gonna get it.
Hey.
So.
we see it in the comments all the time that we're homers and that's all that we do. So, it's just a Freudian slip.
Of the two of us, I'm one that has a degree that says otherwise.
You know what? That is a very fair point, as I have this Husky flag here behind me. But Lars, thank you so much. Everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're not an everydayer yet, hey, we'd love for you to become one. Super easy to do that. You can subscribe to us here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We are there. We are everywhere. Super easy to get involved with the show. Leave a comment, leave us a 5-star review, like the show. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode or when we go live like this. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Wednesday.